Hello, my beautiful friends, my fellow wild dreamers, and space blobs, and butterflies, and goo in the cocoon, and all the various forms that you might be taking in this moment as we sit down here together. We are going to dive into our little check in that we do every 4 months when Mercury retrograde rolls back around. I pretty much always do a Mercury retrograde video. And if you've been with me for a little while, you know that's because I have a very deep passion for connecting with Mercury retrograde in a meaningful way beyond the pop astrology kind of concept of Mercury retrograde as purely about miscommunication, bad travel plans, technology breaking, and all of those kind of classic ways that Mercury retrograde is talked about. I find those really unhelpful, and I also find that it's not really a lens that reflects what's really going on, because let's face it, miscommunication, electronic devices doing weird things, technology, travel plans, those things go awry all year round. That's part of this life, is that we never really know, right? So it's not even innately that interesting to talk about that. And so, like, going into it with the mindset of looking for all of the places where we're running into little rivulets and problems and whatever else is just not that interesting, is it? And those of you who have been with me for a while know already, and probably have already developed your own sense of connection to Mercury retrograde. But for me, this is always such a beautiful time of clarifying, of coming home, of connection, of integration if I've just learned a whole bunch of things, of understanding myself, of taking care of myself. And Mercury retrograde, because it is this illusion of retrograde motion in the sky, it's a time also of getting out of linear thinking, verbal thinking, to-do lists, making things happen, and starting to think from that much more creative, right-brained, expansive, connective place, turning things on their head, looking at the world from different vantage points, and really feeling like magic can come from unexpected places. Wisdom and connection can come from places that don't have to do with just us forcing our way forward through the world. And there's a general bias in astrology for direct motion planets. You'll always see, like there's a season often many times in the year where for a little while, all the planets are direct. And pop astrology will say, oh my God, this is your one chance to do everything in life. And I just find that so unrewarding. Anybody else? I think it's so much more interesting to think about how rich life is when we step out of that treadmill training that so many of us received growing up and trying to be in the world. And so Mercury retrograde I find to be just a beautiful place to check in every 4 months and to tap in and feel through. And this Mercury retrograde I personally love so much. It's my natal Mercury placement. Also, this is my sun sign too, but it's Mercury retrograde in Leo. It's running from July 17th to August 10th. It's all going to be in Leo. And I think this is going to be such a beautiful Mercury retrograde and a really, really helpful one in the context of the world we're working with this year, because we are working with very big, deep questions on the collective level. And we are moving through really big energy waves. I know many of us are feeling that. That is so real. And that brings a lot of paradox with it, where we are both feeling the heaviness of some of these deeper questions and some of the shadow work of the collective and some of the places where we're really having to face in and deal with fears and worries and collective care and all of those important questions. And we're having these huge moments of inspiration, connection, and enlightenment about what's important and what matters, and we're holding all of that. So I think this Mercury retrograde, it's coming after an entire season of outer planets shifting signs. We had Saturn, Neptune, Jupiter, and Uranus shifting into new signs after somewhat long seasons in other signs. We are working with all of this like early degree energy and new signs. We are working with all of these new questions. We are newborn babies in so many ways, navigating the world and with all of the joy and the weirdness that comes with that experience of being newborns in the world and asking these deep questions at a time where we're needing a ton of healing and community and organization and clarity and care and all of those important ingredients. So this is a really beautiful moment in the year for taking care of our energy systems, our heart, finding courage, finding clarity, and moving into some new phases. So let's talk about it. Mercury is this messenger energy that plays with light and shadow, can move between all the different realms, can help us develop ideas. Often I feel like Mercury can be a little bit of a muse that lands on our shoulder for a day and an idea comes through. It helps us to weave between the unconscious and the conscious, to weave between the non-physical and the physical. And it's such an innate part of our day-to-day lives. Like Mercury really represents to me the interesting enjoyment of having thoughts and an imagination and how much that directs the way we move through life. And it's kind of this interesting aspect of being alive in the world they're always working with it. It's always present with us. And I really love Mercury in Leo specifically. And Mercury is having quite a long residency in Leo actually this time around because of this retrograde. So we're really getting a chance to connect with Mercury in Leo. And it really comes to this like simple theme with Mercury in Leo, which is that heart-based, courageous, imaginative, playful energy is one of the most powerful places where we are going to enact change, creativity, and renewal in the world. And it's that simple. I could really stop right there and we would have covered it. For me, every time, like one of the things that's going to be kind of coming through again and again with this Mercury retrograde in Leo is this lesson that we got to get back to that beautiful heart-based place where we feel a little bit playful, we feel a little bit curious, even about challenging things that we have to figure out how to do. We get a little bit fired up about it, listening to a song that excites us about it, or looking at a piece of art that excites us, and feeling that excitement and moving from there. And how much more effective that is than trying to move from other places. And that actually leads me right into, I have 3 central themes and places that I think are going to be super helpful to kind of think about as we move into this Mercury retrograde, and themes that I think are going to be coming up a lot that can kind of help you work with and play with this season of Mercury retrograde. So the first one is it's all about having a deep relationship with your imagination. Leo is the sign of the heart. It's the sign of the inner child, and it's also the sign of leadership. All 3 of those things. Like, how can all of that be in one sign? But it is. What can I say? Leo's amazing. I'm not biased at all. As a Leo sun, Mars and Mercury, I don't have any bias. Just kidding. So this is a very imaginative combo, Mercury and Leo. And in this retrograde, it's thinking about the use of imagination and peace as technologies. There's a lot of conversation around technology as we live in this world, as we work with things like Uranus and Gemini and Pluto and Aquarius. There's going to be so much discussion in the astrology world about technology. And sometimes it's easy to forget about the technology of our imagination and of our ability to create peace within our own systems, of the technology of our energy fields and our vibration. And I know that all sounds really woo-woo and really like easy peasy, and sometimes that can feel taboo to talk about right now. But it is a technology. And it is a place, one of the places where we have some of the deepest empowerment in our own lives and the here and now. And this is a great time to really deliberately think about your imagination, your ability to write story and create from that monologue part of our brain, as a tool and to deliberately develop your relationship to it and think of it as a powerful technology for this time and for your life and also for your communities and all the things that you might have on your mind. This is also a great time within that to notice the inner critic that's often stopping that technology from getting used. Because a lot of times we'll have these inner warriors, these inner critics, the ones that are looking out for danger. It's very much based in the left side of the brain that has this very limited scope that's always looking for the trouble. And there's a role for that kind of energy and that kind of lens, of course, but it can stop us from fully accessing the technology of our imaginations. So this Mercury retrograde in Leo is a time where we're going to be caring for our inner critics, our inner warriors, our inner afraid child, our inner traumas, and caring for them, telling them it's going to be okay. And we're allowed to use this imagination. So if you do internal family systems, this is a very powerful time to work with your inner critics, your inner warriors, your inner guardians that are trying to keep everything safe, and to unleash the technology of your imagination, because it does enact change. That's how plans are made. That's how visions come to life. And if we keep cutting it off, we keep getting stuck at the same impasses, right? So it's a really, really powerful time for that. And it can actually be an amplified time for very powerful vision and imagination to be coming through. So just kind of like already setting your expectations for this residency of Mercury in Leo, pre-shadow, post-shadow, during the retrograde itself, as a time of technologically powerful visionary and imagination is so helpful, I think. The next theme that I think is so powerful for this Mercury retrograde is this idea that centers around the child and the leader. Leo is a really powerful archetype in that it holds both the inner, free, wild child within it and heart-based leadership, and that these two are one and the same, and they're like two sides of the same coin, and that this is where some of the greatest leadership comes from that joyful, free place. So as Mercury is moving retrograde through here, there's going to be this theme that comes up time and again, which is that using play and creativity is the best way to find solutions, is the best way to know how to move next. And that will often also feel very disallowed when you're trying to be a disciplined, conscientious person. And I know people in this space, we're always thinking about, how can I be conscientious? How can I think of others? How can I make sure I'm doing it all right? How can I make sure that I'm acknowledging the world as it is right now? That's beautiful. And sometimes when we work like that, we'll say playful and creative feelings feel selfish right now. A lot of us have been trained that is like not conscientious, that is undisciplined, that is lazy, that is selfish. But this Mercury retrograde is going to show us time and again, if you're willing to give yourself just a little bit of creativity, a little bit of play, a little bit of joy, you'll often be able to access the next right step for important things, not just superficial things, important, deep things, way faster, way easier, with a lot less resistance and stress. And I think this is going to be an interesting place to play around. You know, if you're thinking, okay, I got to find a solution, so I'm going to sit down here and I'm going to make myself like write all the emails and brainstorm all the ways that I could do this thing. Or you approach it from, I'm going to put on some of my favorite music, I'm going to dance around a little bit, I'm going to scribble and sketch, or I'm going to go on a long walk and just see what flows through. Which one works better? Because this is a Mercury retrograde that's going to highlight that and remind us how vitally important and how much easier it can be to get to solutions and recognition of how to connect when we're not torturing ourselves. Once again, that seems almost too simple, right? Like so much messaging would say that's too simple and that's selfish, undisciplined, lazy, all of the key words that we've been traumatized by. But really there's this false dichotomy in culture which says either you're miserable and conscientious or you are a selfish person having a great time on this planet right now. And that's a false dichotomy, is not serving us, because that's not how it is. That's not how it works. And so this is a beautiful time to reflect on that teaching and that learning as well, and to free yourself, to allow yourself that play and creativity can absolutely make beauty in the world, and it can absolutely improve things in the world. I'm feeling very passionate about that particular theme in life right now. The final theme, and this is very mercurial and really brings us back to kind of, I think, like classic Mercury retrograde kind of exploration, is exploring kind of the master story you tell about your story and yourself and your process and who you've been in this lifetime. Is it working for you or against you, that story, whatever it might be? This is a perfect Mercury retrograde to do some rewriting on that. I was recently thinking about this because I've been really hard on myself about my journey living in Sweden. I've been living here for nearly 4 years. And I'm often like, I haven't done this yet. I haven't mastered this level yet. I haven't done all of these things. I'm always thinking about what I haven't done. And realizing that I have learned an entire new language that I read and speak in and like live my life in now. So I'm not a master at it, but I tell you what, I do live my life in Swedish on a lot of levels now, all around me every single day. There's so many things that have happened and elapsed. I've created a whole new artistic style. I've rethought and reformulated all of these aspects of my work. It has been a profoundly deep, empowering time. And that is something that I need to acknowledge and recognize in the storytelling, in the grandmaster storytelling of who I am and what I'm doing in this life. And I think so often we do write stories that are kind of harsh on ourselves, and it doesn't necessarily lead us to better results, does it? And so this is a beautiful time to really intentionally write story that feels like it's loving toward you and like it empowers you to move forward and that it serves you. And that loops me back to that first theme I was talking about, which is the technology of imagination. So much about this Mercury retrograde in Leo is about deliberately choosing to use your imagination in your story writing and your creativity to be the guidance system for anything we're creating next. And that through that heart-based, joyful, connective, imaginative, centered, loving place, it's so much easier to solve problems. It's so much easier to think about what's next in life. It's so much easier to be intuitive. And a lot of times it is as simple as giving ourselves permission to play, to write a nice story about ourselves, to use our imagination to think about something nice for ourselves, for others, for the community, whatever it might be. And that is a very effective place to do it. And this Mercury retrograde is going to have us looking at those places where we edit, censor, critique, and stop ourselves from using the power of that deliberate imagination to let ourselves be in, for lack of a better word, the right frequency, and the frequency that feels good. I don't want to say right or wrong, because I'm somebody who is very prone to melancholy, depression, and I spend a lot of time there, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that frequency. But the frequency of beauty, of creation, of play, of imagination does have a lot of efficacy in the world, and we're allowed to go there. And how do we want to free ourselves to do that? And that's really what it comes down to. And I have been getting that message so much. And in fact, I wasn't even sure I wanted to do a Mercury retrograde chat this time around. And then these messages have been coming through so strongly. So it was like, it never hurts to just have a nice little chat thinking about, the ways we want to create and play. I want to know, what are some of your intentions or feelings as we enter into this Mercury retrograde in Leo? How do you work with Leo energy? What kind of ways do you want to use your imagination, your heart-based, playful creativity in this season? I would love to hear how you're feeling, what's coming up for you. If you love to explore the unconscious and play with ideas, I highly recommend coming and joining me on my Wild Dreaming community over on Patreon. We are in the midst of doing Wild Dreaming at the Crossroads right now. We are working with tricksters in all of July. And what we do there is we do really free form, free writing, surrealist art practices. We allow our unconscious to speak to us and to play with ideas and get in touch with our intuition, while also freeing up different aspects of our wild soul to speak with us, commune with us, and help us see the way next. So I'd love to see you in that space. You can also check out all of the other resources I have there, because it's a whole library of resources that you can access as soon as you join. I'd love to see you there. I love it when you are here. I want to hear your thoughts on Mercury retrograde and how you connect to this transit. And I will see you back here for our next chat very, very soon.